Hi, I'm Mike, and this is Writing in the Ozarks. And the new CEO for Harley Davidson has been on the job for about 3 weeks at the time I'm recording this. I've been hearing stuff ever since he was announced CEO. I did one video about it, but I've been kind of waiting to get more of a feel for the guy after he started the job to do an update video. And 3 weeks in, I got lots of stuff to tell you that I think is interesting. Before we get into that, we're going to address the elephant in the room because someone did a video with a lot of views saying that he was here to sell Harley Davidson. I have a different perspective. That guy said in that video, my opinion, and people took it as fact. They agree with him, but they're stating it as fact. And I think that some of the things he said were very skewed or misinformed. So first off, what makes me more credible than a guy with 100,000 subscribers or whatever else? Well, I spent 9 years in corporate America. My first IT job was for a company that was owned by an investment firm. So 7 companies were merged together, backed by an investment firm that bought the owners out. They all wanted to retire and sell their companies, and an investment firm bought them, merged them, continued to develop and streamline operations, things like that, mergers and acquisitions. Short story, 9 years later, we had gone through 6 CEOs, a bunch of mergers and acquisitions, and we were the 4th largest company in the United States in one of our specialized fields. I left that company because I didn't want to move to Texas where the new base was going to be and where my job would be relocated to. But I know what it's like to report to CEOs. I know what it's like to have CEOs who are doing mergers and acquisitions and selling divisions off and things like that. And Artie Starrs does not strike me as having that pedigree. What he has a pedigree for is being a CEO, president, chief financial officer for Pizza Hut for like 8 or 10 years, being at Callaway Golf for 4 years. So really 2 major companies, 2 major brands he's worked for in, 12, 15 years. That's not the kind of guy that specializes in selling a company off. I know because I had one of those CEOs in that position. He came in as the chief restructuring officer, restructured everything, was named CEO, got the company ready to sell, and they sold it on to the next investment banker who was in the merger and acquisition business who continued to grow the business. It didn't turn out to be a bad thing, just like what's happening to Indian Motorcycles may not turn out to be a bad thing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go check out last week's video about Polaris spinning off Indian. But my point is, I have some real world experience reporting to CEOs, CFOs, going through mergers and acquisitions and sell-offs. These guys who specialize in this, they get brought in to do this to a company. And generally when a company sells or merges with another company, the CEO is one of the first people to go. That's why there's a golden parachute, or as in Harley Davidson's case, a transition plan. Those guys move on to the next merger and acquisition role and do it for another company because they get a percent usually based off of how well the sale goes. How much money the bankers make, then they get a cut. Just like real estate commissions on selling the house. Another thing that video brought up was that he gets bonuses for selling the company. That offer letter was published on Harley Davidson's investor website. You can go look it up. If you don't want to believe me, I'm going to throw it up here. What it talks about are short-term and long-term incentive plans. Nothing says sell the company and we're going to pay you a bunch of bonuses. What it says, if you're only here for 2 years, this is the most you're going to get for bonuses. That's going to fall under the short-term incentive stuff. If you're here for 5, 6 years, then you have a different bonus structure for longevity, and you could get this much. It also requires him to own so much stock. So every year he's got to take his own money, or he's got to get paid in stocks instead of cash to invest into the company. Because at the end of 5 years, he has to have like 5 times his salary in stock value. So there's nothing there that says, hey, come in, flip this company and get out. That's not what his offer contract looks like, regardless of what any video has said. And the previous CEO, if I'd paid closer attention to his offer letter from 2021, I'd have known he was going to retire in 2025 because his long-term incentive plan basically had a deadline of December of 2024 for him to get the most value out of it. If he had left after December of 2023, it was less. If he left after December of 2022, it was even less. So his prime date was after December of 2024. Thus, late 2024, he announced his retirement. He's going to get all his long-term incentives, and he's out the door. Okay, that's the way it works with CEOs sometimes and stuff. And in this case, I'm okay with that. I don't mind that Jochen is leaving the company. I don't think the public perception has been great for Harley-Davidson with him as CEO. Artie Starrs, the video that said he was here to sell Harley-Davidson, pinpointed some mergers and acquisitions and spinoffs that had happened under his leadership. But when you're CEO of companies for 8 years that are growing, you're going to see those kinds of things. But what doesn't line up with what the guy said is, first off, at Pizza Hut, the big deal was one of their biggest franchises was bought by a different company. As I understand it, I think they were either wanting to retire or some financial troubles, and so another company bought them. He didn't, you need to sell your franchise to someone else. It was more like he oversaw, we need to find someone to take over this chain of franchises or we're going to lose a bunch of stores, and he did that. Nothing wrong with that. That's part of the role. At Callaway Golf, he came in just as it was going through a merger and acquisition with Top Golf, and he became CEO of the Top Golf part of it. And he was there for 4 years, and Top Golf and Callaway are splitting, which means he's probably going to be out of a job. So he started job hunting and he moved on to somewhere else. If he was there for mergers and acquisitions, that didn't work out. It wouldn't be the guy I would be looking to hire to make that happen if the last place he worked at as a CEO didn't work out and they were spinning him off and he was probably going to lose his job anyway. Today's sponsor is the Factory Match. Factory Match makes great factory match painted parts for your Harley-Davidson. Like this clockwork slicer fender I got in white onyx pearl. It's a perfect match to the rest of the bike. I also got the little chin piece underneath the headlight. Every time I see a street glide, I look for that now, and I can't unsee it if it's still that stock dull black. I think the factory painted one looks great. They also did my color matched radiator cover as well. If you guys want to save a few dollars on your next purchase from the Factory Match, look in my description down below where you can get a code and save 5% off your next purchase. Did I mention the Factory Match is painting parts in the Midwest, South Dakota, and that's where everything gets shipped from? So you're supporting a local small business when you order from them, and I'm really proud to be partnering with the Factory Match. I consider this a partnership, not just a sponsorship, because not only is he supporting the content, but he has given my audience 5% off their next purchase from the Factory Match using a code in the description down below. I hope you check them out. They got clockwork stuff, they have fenders, windshields, other brands. He's got all kinds of stuff on his website. Go check them out, and I hope you love their products as much as I do. He was hired because he is focused on the customer experience, which is something Harley-Davidson really needs to do. I can't really divulge my source on how I know some of these things because I promised I wouldn't put them on the record, but I've had people reaching out. I've had multiple phone calls with dealers and other people involved with Harley-Davidson in the industry since the middle of August telling me things about this guy. Now, if you haven't heard, he called and spoke to 35 or 40 dealerships from the time he was named CEO before he went to the job on October 1st officially. Calling them, asking them, what the problems are, what kind of problems they're facing, what kind of solutions they think will help. Talking to previous leadership in Harley-Davidson, he did a bunch of groundwork besides buying a motorcycle on his own money to go through that customer experience. That supports what I'm hearing, that he is focused on the customer experience. He wanted to go through that process for himself and see how it works as a customer, what's good or what's bad, and that's what he's going to focus on. Now, a lot of people think we need another Willie G. This guy doesn't ride motorcycles. He's not part of the culture. He doesn't understand. My understanding is he made a comment, I can't say where and when, but it was about manufacturing. And he said, look, I didn't make pizzas at Pizza Hut, and I'm not going to make motorcycles at Harley-Davidson. That's not who I am. If that's who you're looking for, you need to find someone else. He said, I'm going to surround myself with experts on manufacturing, and I'm going to listen to them. And I think the same can be applied for culture. He can talk to people who are in the culture, who are ride, and there are riders there at Harley Davidson, and he can go experience the culture and he can learn some of that. And I think he's already working on that. And we'll talk about that in a second. He did a bunch of groundwork before he ever started the job. His first day on the job was October 1st, and that is when they have a dealer forum for the dealers in the Harley Davidson network. They all come to Milwaukee. There was a presentation. It was his first day on the job, and in his speech, he said, hey, if you like what you're seeing today and these changes, just remember, I don't get credit for any of this. This was all figured out before I got here. Today's my first day. He said, what I did do is I went out and I spoke to a whole bunch of you, and I got some great advice. And he asked if he could quote one of the dealers, and they were present, and they said yes. And you won't believe what he said to the crowd, the advice he got from that dealership. Don't be a dick. Yeah, that's simple. Don't be a dick. That's what one of the dealers told him. And he said, I'm going to work with that, And so I think he's going to try and build relationships with the dealers. He's going to try and make things work better between the company and the dealer network. And that has got to happen, because without the dealer network, Harley Davidson can't sell motorcycles. They can't sell them directly to me and you. It doesn't work that way. They have to have a dealer network, so they've got to find a way to improve that dealer network relationship for themselves, for the dealers to be healthy, for the company to be healthy, and for us to be able to afford motorcycles. So what else is Artie Starrs doing that makes me think he's going to be good for the company? Well, everybody said he needs to go to a rally. He needs to experience a rally. I'm just going to tell you that he was in Daytona during Biketoberfest. I spotted him in a non-public video kind of thing. It wasn't something Harley Davidson put out. It wasn't something that was intended to be shown to everybody. Somebody I know was there, happened to have something posted with him in the background, and I recognized him. So that shows me he is going to rallies. He's going to see how dealers are working at events like this. He's going to see what customers are doing at events like this. So he is interested in the culture as well. He didn't just show up at Harley Davidson's homecoming rally at their headquarters to observe what's going on. He is out and about at rallies. It's not uncommon for them to go to Daytona or something like Biketoberfest, but it's great to see that Artie Starrs is doing that already. So I think there's some great stuff that's going to change for Harley Davidson. I sure hope so. I think a lot of people are concerned about sales and stuff like that. And the fact is, we as consumers are part of the issue there. The economy is part of the issue. He can't make us buy a bike. Can he lower prices? Maybe to some degree, but the company has to stay healthy, so he can only lower them so much. One of the other issues is that there's less people buying motorcycles because there's less people interested in riding motorcycles. People talk about my age group aging out, but it's also got to be, are we developing young riders? I was just at an event, Born Free Texas, and there were a dozen kids running around on mini bikes and little motorcycles. Some little girls, all they did was ride motorcycles all weekend. I didn't see an iPad or an iPhone in their hand once. They were hammering around that campground all weekend having a blast. We need more of that to bring our culture back, to get more young riders into buying motorcycles. Get them off iPads and get them on bicycles. Get them on mini bikes. Do your part to develop the next rider who's going to want to ride a Harley Davidson. All right, that's all I got for you guys today. I got to get to work. Had a long weekend, 1,200 miles, Born Free Texas. It was a great time. There'll be a video coming on that. Stay tuned if you want to see it. Hope you all had a good riding season. It's getting near the end of it here as we get close to November. So y'all stay safe and just tune in on YouTube if you can't be riding, because I got more videos coming.